Hi everyone! A little while ago I went to the Dunelm Knit and Stitch group and I started making a little mat for my Tudor doll's house. And I showed you a little bit of this footage in my doll's house updates video. But I've got some new footage to show you. So I had said that I wasn't going to continue this project, but my mum convinced me to give it another go. And I'm so glad that she did, because I've now finished it and I have a miniature mat that I'm really proud of. So in this video I'm going to show you how I made the mat, and I'd love to hear what you think. So I'd started by plaiting some raffia, many pieces of raffia, and I was making these tiny little plaits with the plan to stitch them down on a piece of material to make a rug. This took a long time. I haven't counted how many plaits, but I needed a lot of them because they're tiny. So I chose some cotton that was a similar colour so that it would be disguised amongst the raffia, and I stitched down each individual plait. You'll notice that each plait starts and ends with a knot, and each plait is slightly bigger than the piece of felt. At this stage I hadn't quite worked out what I was going to do with the end of each plait, but I thought I'd start stitching and hoped that a plan would come to me as I went. As I stitched, I tried to make sure that each plait laid next to its partner plait side by side so that the brown felt couldn't be seen in the gaps. Although there are a lot of plaits to stitch down, I did find it really relaxing. It was a really nice project to do, and I'm really glad that I came back to give it a second go. Some of the plaits were a little bit twisted, so I had to try and make sure that they laid flat as I stitched them down. As I stitched the plaits down, I felt that the overall look was getting better and better. I felt like you could no longer tell that they were individual plaits, and instead it looked like an entire woven rug. What do you think? Do you think it looks realistic? So at this stage I decided to pop the mat into my doll's house just to check its size. I needed to work out how much of the edges to trim away. How many plaits do you think I used altogether? I'll have to count them. I'll maybe put the answer on my Instagram. I'm not a historian, so forgive me if I say any facts that are incorrect here. But I believe that Tudor rush matting was used in Tudor homes for insulation, but also to make the houses smell nicer and to kind of mop up any spills, any dirt, and absorb any moisture. And they were replaced each year when new rushes were harvested, and they would be woven together, and they were laid out throughout the house. Not in the kitchen, I don't think. I think they tended to have stone floor in the kitchen. When I visited Hardwick Hall, which is a National Trust property, they had lots of rush mats. They went all the way up to the skirting board, well, not the skirting boards because the home didn't really have skirting boards, but up to the walls. Unfortunately, I've run out of raffia pretty much, so my rug is just going to be small. So I had to work out what to do about these ends that were sticking out, and I also wanted to neaten up this edge so that you couldn't see any brown felt. I remembered that I had some of this edging, and I can't remember where I got it from. It looks like a bag that I may have picked up at the Doll's House Fair in York, or maybe it was something that my mum had, because she often gives me bits of crafty bits and bobs that she has in her collection, but the colours matched perfectly. It looks like the type of material that you find on a straw hat. I don't know if that's what it is. So anyway, I decided to try and stitch this down to sort of seal in the ends and also to neaten off the edges. So I folded each plait over under the mat and then sewed this edging on top to try and hold it in place. My plan was to then trim off the knots, so it was really important that it was sewed down securely. So I went backwards and forwards with my stitching quite a few times to make sure that each plait was held down tightly before I trimmed off the knots. I did feel a little bit worried as I trimmed off the knots, because if it wasn't sewn down securely, all of the plaits could have unravelled, and it had taken me hours and days and hours and days and weeks to do all of these plaits. But it held down well, and so I repeated it on the other side. Next, I used the edging to sew along the long sides of my rug, and I just put the edging underneath and stitched it onto the plait that was nearest to the side, and this helped to make the edge look really neat. My aim was to hide all of the brown felt so that it wasn't on show. Obviously there was some brown felt underneath the mat, but I didn't want it to be visible when you looked into the doll's house. If anyone's new to watching this video today, welcome, and if you want to have a look at the progress on my Tudor doll's house, please take a look at my playlist, because I've documented everything right from the start of getting my doll's house to taking it right back to the Tudor era. As you can see, this little mat, because it was so rigid, was actually standing up slightly, so I decided to put a book on it to flatten it down, but my gardener's yearbook was just not heavy enough. So out came my collection of Shakespeare plays that I'd used when I was doing the floorboards in the attic space in my last video. That wasn't enough either, so on went a cookbook as well. So I left these overnight, and in the morning I took them off and hoped that this would be nice and flat now, and it was. What do you think? Do you like it? I'm really pleased with it. On the one hand, I think it's a shame that I didn't have enough raffia to make it bigger, but on the other hand, I'm quite glad that you can still see the floorboards. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Please do let me know any ideas that you think I should make for my doll's house, and I'll see you next week.